Hey, we are back again. Welcome to Living Out Loud Live. I'm Vicki. With me are my amazing sisters, Laura and Jaime. Both are strong ally activists in their own right. They are my closest family and best friends. For those of you who don't know us, I have the honor of introducing our sister, Jaime, who is on the front lines of the fight for not only transgender rights, but all social justice. She's the founder of Moms for Hope, an organization to educate and connect parents of transgender children. She's a public school teacher making a difference in the lives of the next generation every single day. She's also the mom of 2 teen boys and 1 tween girl. She was a student of African studies, and this summer will be traveling with her husband for the trip of a lifetime to Africa. And she brought along a friend tonight who's going to help us do a very special show for Black History Month. So we'll introduce that friend in a little bit. Somehow with everything she's got going on, she still manages to join us here at the table each week to help us change the world. Welcome, Jaime. What are you drinking tonight, and how has your week been?
I am great. Now that I'm with you ladies, I am drinking wine as usual out of my Ladybug cup. My week's been good. I was at a professional development training today, and I'm looking forward to getting back with my students tomorrow. And we're doing an amazing assembly with the Black Student Union, and I'm excited, and I'm excited for them, and I'm excited to hear what the speakers have to say. And and I am just really excited overall. I get to introduce, hold on, I can't see, and I don't have my glasses on because they were glaring. Sorry. I get the honor of introducing the exceptional and strong beyond belief, well-known, fierce as hell, LGBTQIA plus activist, creator of the Living Out Loud with Laura audio podcast, mother of 2 LGBTQIA plus daughters that came out in adulthood, reformed corporate Barbie, who struggles daily with chronic illness, and yet she is here as a proud rainbow warrior. How are you doing tonight, Laura? And what are you drinking? What have you been up to this week?
Nothing big, right? Laura, no big news this week.
No. So let's start with, I am drinking the Aqua Fresca, and then I have as a backup to that, Bud Light Seltzer retro tie-dye. And the reason is I'm scraping the barrel on items in my refrigerator because we did close on our empty nester home this Monday, and we are going to be moving in completely on Friday. After tonight's episode, the only room in the house that still has anything actually really left in it is the studio here. And after this week's episode, it's coming down. So
striking the set right after the show. That's a tradition.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's been crazy. I haven't even had a chance to even chat with you ladies at all this week because it's just been one thing after another.
You're a busy lady. We get it.
We missed you though.
We did.
I know. I miss you guys too. It's been just so crazy. But once we get settled, it will be so nice. And I can't wait to those that are going to be able to join us Friday to finish getting settled and moved in and everything. I'm super excited. So now I get to introduce our sister, Vicki. She's a newly remodeled transgender woman, lesbian wife of the gorgeous and my friend Lisa, stepmom of 2 amazing men, and a woke rainbow mafia liberal feminist with only one true agenda: to end hate and spread love and light. And what is in the cup, bitch? And how is your week going?
I'm also drinking wine. Jamie's got me hooked on wine lately, so
I've been the box wine. I have so much.
My cup is packed.
I'm having the pineapple, the Trader Joe, the Aldi pineapple wine. So for me, the big news is the company I work for, which I will not name. It's a very Mickey Mouse kind of organization.
Dad didn't give us any hints.
Has invited me to be part of the International LGBTQIA plus Pride organization as a co-chair on the board for events. So it's me and one other person from New York who are going to be trying to make sure that we build community through the events. And one of the big things that I get to do that I've been talking about is talking about our history. And a lot of our history is the fact that pride has always been in our company, that we've always had LGBTQIA plus artists and talent, and some of them didn't come out until very late in life because they weren't comfortable doing so. But that's what I am trying to make sure that people know it's safe. People know that where we are is a great place. There's an active community there. So very excited. It's just started the onboarding for that. I have to do it along with my normal job. So holy smokes. But it's going to be exciting. And I've already kind of talked to Shelly about intermingling with a lot of the community events and Maya from the center. So lots going on. All together, we are the queens of the overshare, especially when they try to take our rights away. We are also a loveliness of ladybugs, and we welcome all our intersectional ladybug family and friends who are here every week, as well as all of you joining us live or in replay. This is an opinion show. All the opinions are our own, so you may hear some stuff you don't agree with. You can join the discourse in the comments. Please do us a favor and include your name, because we don't always see in the studio who's made the comments. I'm adding that. So we know how to address you and talk to you. And we just block the people who try to troll us. So you can try it, but that won't last long. We're explicit often, so parents, please monitor what your kids are viewing. I mean, shit, you don't really need
You said shit, so we've already got that word. The first
explicit rating and intersectionality achieved within the first 8 minutes. Fair warning, we will forget about you out in comment land. We kind of get involved in our discussion, and we're doing a live stream. So we'll get back to you as quickly and as often as we can, because this isn't a show. This is what happens when three sisters who are activist accomplices decide to change the world together. By the way, happy Gal Palentine's Day. Love both of you.
Cheers.
Yep. Cheers. And are we ready to go?
Yeah.
Let's do it. We have a whole bunch of stuff going on that we are going to be at or involved in. Holy smokes. This weekend, DeLand, Love is Pride Fest 2024. It goes from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. It looks like they've got a bunch of different things, including the Orlando Gay Men's Chorus, several drag shows, drag story times. It looks like they've got an 18-plus venue and a lot of stuff that's family friendly. A bunch of vendors. If we still have any energy after helping Laura move, I really want to go, because I love a good Pride Fest. It's always a good time. And they're following up at 9 p.m. with live music at Cafe Da Vinci. I don't know what that is, but it sounds
that is lovely. Cafe Da Vinci is this outdoor bar area, basically. It is really, really nice. I actually did Love is Love Pride last year for the very first time with free mom hugs. So it's actually such a cute little one. It's a very homey, down-home community-based one, like a small community. So it's so cute and lovely. I love this one. I'm so excited to be going, because I plan on going at least for a little bit.
Very cool. Also coming up, we have Pride Prom, which I'm bringing up earlier. It's the last couple days for the best discount on the tickets. There's the link. You can see it's Eventy. So it's $30, and there's some additional codes if you search for the additional codes. The additional codes are what are dropping off. It's $100 for the VIP, which, as I understand it, includes some drinks, a VIP area, and pictures. I never got to go to prom. I know Dennis never got to go to prom. We are going to tear this up. I've had dresses around.
Dresses. I have multiples to pick from.
Lisa,
I have one that's on order that's coming this week. It should be delivered tomorrow.
To your new house?
To my new house.
Okay, good.
Outstanding. So yeah, it's I love the theme. It's be your brightest self. So
For me, that's still going to be black, but I might wear some neon.
It'll be a very bright black. Okay.
Yes.
We also
Well,
have
the
Pride.
China can be reflective, so therefore it's bright.
I feel like my shirt is freaking on fire tonight.
You see, I feel that you're sparkly. Like I feel like
Yes,
oh,
very
listen,
sparkly.
baby, listen. Ginger.
We also have Pride Night coming up at the Central Florida Fair, just on the east side of Orlando on Colonial. Bunch of vendors going to be there. VIP area, 2 drag shows. It's $5 admission if you go to the use the code Pride before and buy your tickets online. So do that. We're definitely going to be there, and we're going to be doing a recap of what we find and what we see after that. Finally tonight, our friend Andrea sent us a new action that she's trying to put together with a bunch of she's putting it together. It's the March for Dreams and Freedom. It's going to be on International Women's Day, which is March 8th this year. It's a coalition of a bunch of different organizations that want to stand in solidarity. So it's going to be down at Lake Eola, 6 p.m. I think this is a good opportunity for us to get together and really support a lot of different things. Florida's women, immigrants, transgender, LGBTQ, Black, Indigenous people, the workforce, people of color, basically all the marginalized.
I forgot to tell you, not to totally cut you off, but I totally did. So they've actually asked Dempsey and I to speak together on stage. So we will be speaking at the band shelter, the rainbow thing. And so Dempsey and I will be speaking. We will definitely be there because we are speaking, but we will be marching. And last year we were there, and it was amazing. The turnout was great, and it really brings, I'm going to say, intersectionality. It's like everyone, and it's a beautiful event, and you march around Lake Eola, and you bring your signs, and you just be you. And I think
if you've never been to a march or a rally, this might be a great one for you to go to for your very first time.
Absolutely. And I believe I was told, because I have to write a speech, and so does Dempsey. I believe that this year theme is on mothers and fathers. So and so appropriate for international women's day.
Absolutely. But it's really the more we all stand together as and there are so many marginalized communities that the state of Florida attacks.
Yes.
Well, basically, unless you're a cis white man, you're correct.
Yeah. Yeah. With that, we're going to get on to our main feature tonight. So here we go.
Oh, I like that new bumper. I love that snippet. That was really cool.
And it was short and to the point.
I know, but it was really cool. Oh, I'm thrilled to present our guest tonight. And I brought tissues because I'm gonna cry because I miss her so much. We first crossed paths at the onset of my teaching journey years ago. Overwhelmed and new, I found solace in my classroom neighbor, who quickly became my guide. Our shared passion of history and empathetic understanding of others bonded us. She has been my mentor, my wisest companion, teaching me invaluable lessons. Her unique insights are always priceless. I have missed her more than I could ever convey in words since she relocated out of state for new pursuits. Jackie Hunter is a wife, mother, teacher, doula, nonprofit owner, and a veteran. Born and raised in New Jersey, she spent much of her adult life in Florida and considers it her home. Sorry. A first-generation college graduate, she is a proud alumni of Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona and Nova Southeastern University. The motto Bethune-Cookman is enter to learn and depart to serve, and she has tried to do that in a career that has spanned 25 years working with youth. She has worked both in education and recreation. This includes as a high school teacher, a college professor, and a cultural center director. Jaqueline is also the founder of Oh Happy Play, a nonprofit organization that recycles unwanted toys for low-income families and youth service organizations. An avid outdoors person, she loves camping and revamping her camper, because I've seen that, hiking and kayaking. She also enjoys traveling to historic sites and making me jealous with all of her travels, visiting living history museums and reading her endless catalog of history books. She's a diehard fan of the TV series West Wing, and she has the show on repeat in her office. Jaqueline is a former assistant professor of education at Clark University, and she now works full-time serving as a community doula and running her nonprofit organization. Welcome, Jaqueline, aka Jackie to me, or Hunter, it just kind of depends. How are you doing this evening?
First of all, I didn't realize I was on camera. I was having a moment as you were speaking. I'm good.
You're good? You ready to keep going?
It's a women's table, and we get very emotional, and
it's okay.
It's a beautiful thing.
We all have our tissues. Look, they're important to have.
I grabbed some. I usually don't, and I knew.
I'm grabbing a towel.
I ended up moving to the paper towels because the tissues weren't.
Bounty was necessary for the picker-upper.
Vicki, I'm with you. I have a whole hand towel. I'm like, oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah. I'm usually the emotional bitch. They're like, shut up, stop crying.
Jaqueline,
I am definitely a crybaby.
I am so excited for you to be joining us here this evening. I am so excited to learn from you. And honestly, I'm sitting back and going to be absorbing as much as I wholly possibly can from you. And I understand that you are going to introduce some of the amazing Black LGBTQIA icons from history. Who would you like to introduce us to first?
Oh, goodness. You know what? I have.
Would you like to start with Richard Bruce Nugent?
Should we start with Richard?
Yeah. Let's start with Richard.
I think that would be a great one to start with.
Going, because I will be honest with you, some of the names I wasn't as familiar with. I don't like to read from anything. I'm going to pull. Let me do that. I'm going to pull on Richard. Okay. We'll pull some out. So Richard Bruce Nugent was from New Jersey. He was a writer, an artist, an actor, associated with the Harlem Renaissance, probably one of my favorite times in history to share. He is coming from a socially prominent family, and that's going to really be important in terms of his perspective and what he is going to be exposed to, and certainly his outlook. After his father dies, he's going to relocate to New York City during a time where there was just so much that was happening in New York, particularly around the Harlem Renaissance and the richness that was happening there. We were really moving past some of the horrors of our period of enslavement and just really looking at a very different time in our history. He would be introduced to author Langston Hughes in 1925. And this is going to really become the beginning of his lifelong fascination with the arts and his contribution to the literary and political movements of the Harlem Renaissance. He explored issues of sexuality and Black identity in his poems, short stories, and erotic drawings. His ardent bohemianism was the inspiration for the character of Paul Arbion, an artist and writer in Wallace Sturm's 1932 Infants of the Spring. And
His
when
art
we look
is
at these images, we look at it really from almost sometimes we're looking at it from a modern perspective. We don't think about how bold and brash he had to be then, to have these conversations, to be in those spaces. And I think the one thing that always fascinates me is when I think about the brilliance, even with some of the people we're covering tonight, and realizing many of them shared so many same spaces. And as I'm sitting on here with you ladies and thinking about what it means when we commune and when we're together and we can have these conversations and what that looks like. And can you imagine sitting in a room with James Baldwin and Richard and Bayard Rustin? Like, I can't even Langston Hughes. Like, what do you talk about? What don't you talk about? What that must mean, the creativeness or creativity that came in that space. Last year, was it last year, Jamie? No, year before last, with one of our teacher trips, I had the opportunity to go to New York. And I hadn't been in New York in many years. When I had gone before, I went as a college student. I certainly wasn't as well versed as I would like to think that I am now. And so when everybody left to go eat, I left and went into Harlem. And I remember sitting on the steps of that famous jazz picture that they took. I don't even know what street that was. And there was a woman sitting outside, and I went and sat down to speak with her. And just in my mind, in the imagining of what that must have been like to have all of those great people in one space at one time. I don't want to take away from what we see today, but it just doesn't, in my opinion, compare to what we know historically. And as you talked last week, even in the conversation, I think sometimes having a really, what's the word I'm looking for? When we can make those living history moments come alive, where you can envision being there and seeing yourself there, it just looks very different sometimes in the way that we study. And I think one of the, I think the assets for Jamie and I in the way that we teach is that we really do try to put the students in that moment so that they are able to better understand what they're seeing.
Absolutely. I mean, I try to, and I wish, I could have been there at that moment in time when they were all convening together. And how special was Richard in this regard? Because he's really probably out of the list that we are going to cover is probably the least remembered. And he was fully out. Like, and there was a lot of closeted people like Langston Hughes, and there was a lot, James Baldwin. They were more closeted. They were not out with their sexuality. And Richard was like, he was very much like, I'm a gay man. I am who I am. And this is not a problem for anybody. This is my business, not your business.
Yeah, it looks like he was quoted to say, you see, I'm a homosexual. I've never been in what they call the closet, and never occurred to me that it was anything to be ashamed of. And it never occurred to me that it was anybody's business but mine.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And it was also in his art. You saw it all throughout his
art.
What's
interesting.
I think we lost you for a second, Jacqueline.
When the names, when Jamie sent me the names, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
you. Okay. When we were talking about some of the names we were going to review, I remember thinking the issue of their sexuality never came up in my learning, if that makes sense. Like we could see the humanity in the moment. We weren't, I don't remember somebody saying, well, let me tell you about James Baldwin. That when they told me about James Baldwin and Nikki Giovanni, and when they said that, it was what I know them for, what I still know them for. And I'm so grateful that that my introduction didn't come with all of the things that people want to make complicated that in my opinion aren't complicated, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Who do
Who
we
do you
have
want to
next?
tackle next, Jamie?
All right, who we got next? Who wants to talk?
Oh, I've been prepping Dempsey for this one because she's going to watch the show after. And I told her we were going to have a trans person on this list. And Polly Murray, assigned female at birth, for sure. All accounts later in life, and I'm going to leave it to Jackie to do it, but all accounts, most people would now consider, or they would, most scholars would say that she probably would identify as a transgender male. But let's dive into Polly Murray, who is extraordinary beyond extraordinary in so many ways. Like, holy crap.
So,
what an incredible human
and
being.
Polly Murray. Her life, when it talked about her becoming a priest, I was like, oh, she was trying to figure out what she wanted to do when she grows up too. She was much later,
but
in
not
life.
just a priest,
I
a
don't
lawyer
feel
as
so
well.
bad. And I'm like, yeah,
She
I don't know.
She
what I
wore a
wanna
lot
do.
of hats, kind of like you, Jackie. She wore a lot of hats.
She was a Renaissance person. She studied everything, and it looked like she got involved in everything, which was, when I was reading through the background, I was amazed and did some research on my own, looking at the pictures. I mean, this was an extraordinary life. This was a life that was never stagnant at all. It's like they were constantly on the move, or he was, I don't know, because again, we never found out.
So with the pronoun things, I've looked it up in my research. The Polly Murray Center uses she, he, and they pronouns for them. So any of the pronouns are okay because they were like throughout. They changed, and so that's okay. And so I think any of the pronouns we use is absolutely acceptable. Just to put that out there.
That's good clarification. Thank you.
Yeah.
I hate getting tongue-tied trying to figure out what I should be saying.
I'm sorry. Dempsey wants to say hi, and she's saying hi.
Dempsey, I miss you so much. Oh my goodness. Oh, beautiful as ever. I can't wait to see you. I'll be home. I'll be home this summer, so I'll see you then.
Yes. She's like, yes.
No one to get out.
Oh,
Bye,
sorry.
guys.
Sorry.
It was really interesting because right before we got on for the podcast, I was looking at a video, and the gentleman asked the audience, I believe they were college students. He asked about the Montgomery bus boycott, and he said, who was instrumental in the boycott? And they named every Black male leader you can think of from the civil rights movement. And I looked at my husband and I said, Joanne Robinson. And I kind of did it just to see, like, please, Lord, let me be correct. Because if they say something other than that after I've nudged him. And so when he finally got to it, he said it was Black women at Alabama State, led by Joanne Robinson. And I kind of did the fist pump with my husband because, in that moment I was correct. And I look forward to those moments. And so and I was thinking about Polly Murray. And when we talk about the Brown versus Board of Education case, we immediately go to Thurgood Marshall. We immediately go to the NAACP, and we only recognize the men. And so I'm going to read something really quick about Polly Murray. But it goes back to this conversation in terms of how women show up, particularly when we're talking about any movement, the civil rights movement particularly, and why there's been such backlash, I guess you could say, historically, in terms of the fact that women just have not ever earned their due. And so I think this is really important when discussing Polly. So Anna Polly Murray was a brilliant strategist and fighter for racial and gender equity. She was a lawyer with 4 advanced degrees and later a professor, lecturer, and author. Murray also wore men's clothing. And so that's where they really go into, the identity, and that came from a 2017 biography. And so she was identified as a woman in her lifetime. And Jamie, you kind of alluded to what's happened with that. She graduated first in her class as the only female student at Howard University Law School, also was Thurgood graduated from, which would have been monumental at that time.
Yeah.
Even now, where she led successful nonviolent actions against segregation in the 1940s. Murray also suffered, and it talks about mental illness, and I do hope we can touch on that a little bit, because I think sometimes when you are trying to live your authentic life, how much conflict can come from that as a result. And I want to make sure that when we are acknowledging, even with the mental illness piece, that I don't doubt, based on what I read, that some of that was tied into her trying to live and exist in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. Nevertheless, she was the founder of the National Organization for Women, and was instrumental in crafting the theory behind Brown versus Board of Education. Through her passionate activism, Murray forged a direct line to Eleanor Roosevelt. Also, I'm about to go into Mary McLeod Bethune, but that's a story for another level, which allowed her to weigh in on policy in FDR's White House, especially around lynching. Murray was instrumental in planning the 1963 March on Washington. Again, we never mentioned her name, but strongly critiqued the way that Negro women were subjugated in the civil rights movement. And she says, if anyone should ask a Negro woman what is her greatest achievement, her honest answer would be, I survived.
Yeah. And it's interesting that even the National Organization for Women lists her as kind of the forgotten co-founder of the organization. To put things in some perspective, my mother marched for the Equal Rights Amendment and dragged me along in 1969 when that was still. I was an early feminist, but it's interesting that we're back to fighting for the same rights all over again that we never got across the finish line the last time, and are we going to get them across the finish line this time? Do you think there's enough of a swell with the repeal of the abortion rights to maybe get some of these?
I think we should use other countries as examples. When all women, just stop working, shit gets done, because they can't run any country without women working.
Which country was that again?
Oh, it's been many. I can't even. Was it one of them? Ireland,
Netherlands, it was one of the
working.
Yeah, just stopped. Went on strike. I think we should do that.
I think it's difficult for many reasons, but I also think in this country, capitalism is the driving force and the momentum, and it is part of our downfall. Like, I was just having an argument with my dad about corn, because he's like, why do we need corn? And I'm like, well, corn is the basis of what farmers grow, because we have to put corn syrup on anything. And I'm going on a completely different tangent. The point is, capitalism is the hierarchy already exists, because you have to make money, and men are making the money. Women are less than. And so I just think if women could band together, but I don't know if that's a reality in American society. I don't. I mean, if you look at the data from the 2020 election, was it like 60% of white women voted for Trump? It was like an asinine amount of women that is voting against their own interests, but they did it anyway. It's like, I don't know. Like, I feel like, for me, that's a fairy tale. Like, I feel like I wish we could get there, but I don't know if that's a reality.
Yeah, and it really, I've seen it in my own life with friends that had very strong, opinionated spouses who definitely were not necessarily friendly to more Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Equity and equality. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah. So it's interesting in that the hand goes under the table to squeeze the thigh, but the challenge is never made that, hey, I disagree, and we have to be able to speak up in our own houses as well, and say, no, I do not agree with that. And I was very lucky in that my parents, at least, were equal in that regard. My mom and my dad never. They may have had the total wrong ideas. They were, Nixon Republicans, God help and protect me, but
Sorry, Vicki, I'm sorry.
but my dad always gave my mom total and complete respect. She was the controller for his company,
which is rare for the time, though.
Yeah.
That's rare for the time. Like, I grew up with a mom that was in, like, my mother's 20 years older than me. My mother was 20 years old when she had me. She couldn't have a bank account. She couldn't have an apartment. She couldn't have any of those things. So, like, women have always been, like, subjugated, and, like, I don't know. I just feel like bringing it back to women, I feel like women are still always less than. And it doesn't matter if they're Black women, Hispanic women, white women, they're still less than their male counterparts. The problem is that somehow we can't make this connection across all women, that we need to band together in the way that other countries have.
Well, the reason why is I still think the men do a great job trying to push women down, and I know that it is not widely appreciated for me to say this. However, the churches do a great job in trying to teach women their place.
Well,
Very
biblical,
often.
if you look at
So,
biblical
two steps
accounts,
behind, right?
subservience. I mean, that's true. I mean,
so when you have so many women that are going to church and are being told that they have to be subservient, see, I had a different experience, Vicki. My parents, I had divorced parents, so even with my mom, with my stepfather, I saw it a completely different side. Like, my stepfather would punish me for something stupid as fuck. I mean, literally stupid as fuck, right? And then instead of my mom pushing back on him, she just waited till he left and then said, okay, no, you're not grounded when he's not here.
Yeah.
I mean,
So she was still in charge as long as the iron fist wasn't
around. Correct.
Yeah, no, and I mean, it brings up a much broader discussion, particularly in my case, about privilege, and having gone through this transition this year and coming out this year and having lived most of my adult and childhood as somebody not myself, but still white and male, being brought into, and I never, believe me, trust me, I never agreed with it. Jamie knows that I was feminist before I was feminine. But I've seen the Old Boys Network. I've seen the glass ceiling now from both sides, and
it's also a topic that, I mean, it's totally not in the script, and I'm sorry, but like, it's something that we do need to discuss. As far as let's talk about trans women, right? Let's talk about this complete disparity with trans women of color that are being brutally murdered, right?
Yes.
Dempsey lives a life of privilege. His parents that accept her, support her like 1,000,000%, right? But I have people who reach out to me that say, my parents threw me out. I have nowhere to live. And sex work is another huge thing, right?
Yes.
Sex work is the only way to provide for yourself.
Right.
I don't know. I think privilege is huge, and I always try to make sure my kids understand what kind of privilege they have. But also, we need to acknowledge there's some issues here. Like there's some issues with
There's some huge issues.
yeah. Like I mean, I don't know, Jackie, in Black culture and Black society, transgender women are like men want to have sex with them, but then when they find out they're trans, then they kill them. So that's the reality. But
I don't know
I'm
if when they know they discover. I think they may have known, and once they are
maybe,
finished,
but it's
then it's the guilt. It's
yeah.
been a lot of studies. It's the guilt of enjoying it. It's the guilt of it's that post sex.
I think it's the humiliation and the shame that goes with it that I think
Yeah.
is like ingrained. And what do you think, Jackie?
And you're dealing with, I think you are really faced with the masculinity part of that, or what is everyone going to think? You have, it's interesting because we'll talk about Bayard Rustin in a little bit. And, the Black church has come under a lot of criticism in terms of how they have responded to the LGBTQ community. And I knew about Bayard Rustin for years. And whenever we get into the Black church and we hold King on this pedestal, and I absolutely love Dr. King, I think that's the part they leave out. This high, well, who was he accepting of or not? And I think that they have purposely left that out in order to support this idea or these ideologies behind who they thought he was. Because brilliance is brilliance. A good person is a good person. And being able to see past whatever hiccup you might have, because he had his own hiccups, to be able to appreciate that. The Black community, I think so often, there are so many criticisms on so many different levels. And the one thing that has come up constantly is this, demasculization. Are we pulling away? Are we pulling away? And some of that goes back to, the period of enslavement. So it's like the last threshold of manliness, I guess you can say, that they're trying to hold on to. So when they find themselves in these spaces, the first thing is, well, I've got to have this bravado has to come out. It has to show up, even if that means me taking a life, as horrible as that is, in order to still feel like I'm going to. And I'll never be able to explain that. I think,
Well, and it's even just
so
even looking
much has been done.
Yeah.
I mean, even just looking at masturbation, 90% of people that masturbate to porn immediately shut down the porn and feel guilty after they climax for whatever reason. So I think it can be that the excitement, the elation, the right, it's gone, and so I think it's unfortunate that we still have a lot of negative stereotypes about just sex in general, and then you add the trans gay aspects, the all of that on top of it. It's sad and it's tragic. And
I think I will add to that. I learned something new because I was doing something with my students, and Jackie, I think you'll appreciate this for me. Well, you'll appreciate this. I was doing something, and one of the kids, I asked them to make hashtags on the primary documents, and one of them said colorism. And so I was like really confused because I was like, I don't know if that's a word. And so like me, like I will say, I don't know if that's a word. I don't know that. And I'll look it up. And I did look it up. And it is a word. And I defined it on the board. I wrote it on the board. And I said, well, colorism is when you are prejudiced against someone of a different color within your own race. So you're talking about prejudice of light-skinned people versus dark-skinned. I didn't know that word. I mean, I know color, but I didn't know colorism. And they were like, Miss, you didn't know that word? And I was like, no, because I didn't know that word. But that does exist. And that is a very real thing that I see at Liberty every day. I mean, for sure. Like, you have darker skinned kids and lighter skinned kids, and they're like, oh, well, it's a dark skinned kid. Like they it's a color issue. And they almost like, I don't want to say rank each other, but one's better than. I mean, maybe you can talk to it more than that, more than I can, but.
I can't even begin to tell you the division that has created in the Black community. Even within my own family, my grandmother is extremely dark. My paternal grandfather passed for white. And so my mother came out light. And so looking at my grandmother, people knew that who who she was married to was not my mom's
Yeah.
father. And so when people would come to the house, she would hide my mom and my uncle because of the lighter complexion. Now, it wasn't her disowning them, but it would have created conversation. And even within my own home, all four of my children have a different complexion. And we've had those conversations in terms of where they're accepted or not accepted. When you pledge the Divine Nine are the Black sororities and fraternities that were founded prior to integration, and they had the paper bag test, and the paper bag test could determine what sorority you would be welcome into. My father's family is pretty fair, light complexion, if you want to use that term. My mom's family is darker, but even that, in terms of who you could marry, who went to school where. The colorism is real. If you look at most videos with African American artists, Black artists, most of the time the women that they have in those videos are light, as they say, light and damn near white. So a lot of criticism. We've had to really, as Black women, go back and really do a lot to affirm darker complexion Black women, because they have just been so disregarded. Living in Iowa for me has been even more difficult because the interracial relationships are huge here. But what has happened is most of the Black men here, the Black boys, speaking of being in high school, have chosen not to date at all Black girls. And so I've got a daughter who is trying to now understand, well, what do I need to look like in order to even be found attractive by my peers? So it is so deeply rooted. It is probably one of the most difficult conversations in the Black community. There's a letter we call the Willie Lynch letter, which is really supposed to kind of be this fictitious letter. Some say it's true, some say it's not, but it was a letter that was written to show how you would divide the Black community, the house slave from the slave working in the field, the light against the dark, the old against the young. And it really goes down this descriptor. And if you were to ever really kind of analyze some of the dissension within the Black community, that is where you would see it. And the fact that this letter had been written so long ago, but outlines things that we see in our community today is absolutely heartbreaking.
I'm telling the both of you right now, Vicki and Laura, we're not going to be able to finish the show in an hour. We need Miss Hunter to come back again, because this first of all, definitely. I need her to come back because I miss her so much. I need her to come back, even if it's just in a screen.
And now you'll know when you're live on camera, so it will be very good for you the next time.
But but what she just said about colorism is not even anything
let me say this
in the script. Like this is something I'm learning, and I am a lifelong learner. Like that's why I've always appreciated Jackie in my life, because she would ask, like, I would say something and she would be like, Jamie, but what about that person? And I was like, we would be eating cheese and crackers in my classroom, and I would say something and she would say, but what about this person? Did you think about it from this perspective? And I hadn't. And so we need to have her back, because we have to go through the rest of these people. We need to do Rustin, and we have to do all these people, but I am.
Jackie, you said you were born in New Jersey. Where in New Jersey were you born, real quick?
And then Laura's from New Jersey.
Yeah, I'm from New Jersey, so I'm very excited to know where in New Jersey.
I was born in Camden.
Okay,
born in Camden, New Jersey.
Uh-huh.
And I'll be real quick about this. There's two things that I want to make sure that I cover. Um, my mom's side of the family was from Virginia. My grandmother only had a sixth grade education. My grandmother worked as a maid her entire life, as did her sisters. And so when my dad's side of the family, they had formal education. I mean, they had gone to school, they had master's degrees. I wasn't raised by my dad. I was raised by my stepfather who had not gone to college, but my dad's family had this. So when my mom and dad met, that was a no-no. Like the fact that my father would date this woman whose family did not come from money, who was not established, that was a huge no-no. And so we get into the classism and what that looks like, and that's internal. That has nothing to do with what's going on in the rest of the world. But I want to be real quick, Jamie, as you're saying this, because I know we have learned from each other, and I am a student for the rest of my life. I will always be a student. I remember Jamie showing me the video of Dempsey as a child, and I came home. I don't have anyone in my family who is trans, so that was not a conversation. I had members of the LGBTQ community, but I did not have anyone in my family that was trans. So I know I was still working from a deficit in terms of what that looks like, and that's why I know how important that friendships and authentic relationships are. And I went home and I showed my husband the video, and I said, "There's no way no one didn't know. Like, there's no way Jamie would not have known." Very early in Dempsey's life that Dempsey was a girl. Like there was, and I don't know that I would have ever thought that way or known that had I not met Jamie, had I not seen it for myself, had I not had that experience. When I say that changed the whole game, like my whole perspective, when I came back to Iowa and my LGBTQ community here is really strong, or we have a very strong relationship. It changed everything. And so as we're talking about these people and thinking about those experiences and where those deficits come up and how we don't know how to talk and communicate, it's everything. It's all we have at the end of the day. Like, how do you not get to know someone who makes you a better person, who helps you grow as a person? I know even conversations that my husband and I have had where he has grown because he was still working in isolation of who's who and how do we accept that and how do you make that make sense? And those months that I spent with Jamie were probably more. I probably learned more in that time than I think in anything else that I've ever done in my lifetime in terms of learning about someone that I didn't know, learning what that experience was like. So yeah, I just had to get that out there, especially when Dempsey walked in the room. Because
No, I agree, Jackie.
Okay.
That's.
I'm good
I mean,
now.
I will say this. My worldview has done cartwheels the last few years. Honestly,
I call myself a recovering Karen.
yeah, we do. And you know, the reason I brought up privilege to begin with was I'd already seen a change in status in the way people treat me, in the way especially men treat me, and I can't even imagine from the state my point of privilege, the African American Black experience of what it's like. So I'm not trying to own any piece of that. What I'm saying is I see even in my own life there's a difference. So my question, and we can talk about this to wrap up, and I think
Can we talk about the HBCUs? I don't know what the question is, but I do want to ask. I want Jackie to tell us, and I know it wasn't included in the script, but I do want her to tell us why historically Black colleges and universities are important and what makes them different from PWIs, which are, anybody watching, predominantly white institutions, which most of our colleges are. Please, because I think it's so important for Black history and for African American students and anybody that's watching, because students watch this. Why are those institutions important? Why do we need them?
I did not grow up in a home where Black history was talked about. My mom has a very, very narrow or understanding about anything that you would probably consider Black history period. Just not her things. And so when I was growing up, I knew that that was a part of my life that I wanted. I knew that I wanted to go to college because I was trying to change the economic situation of that I had come from. And to me, the only thing that I had to work with was going to college. My grandfather, who was on my dad's side, was a professor at an HBCU in Maryland. And so I applied to go there just because he had been there. I didn't know him, I had never seen him, but I knew he had been the head of the biology department. And I wanted to be able to connect with that side of my life. And so I ended up going to Morgan State University in Maryland. What people, first of all, HBCUs graduate basically 1/3 of your Black professionals. That's a large number of people. Florida A&M actually graduates more Black undergraduate students than any other HBCU out of the 105 that we have in the country. HBCUs, whether you have grown up in a predominantly Black community, predominantly white, or integrated as I did in Florida, they are going to provide a safety net from the outside world. And I think in many ways, Black students need that because you only get 4 years to get that safety. And then you got to go out into the world and deal with everything else. You're going to be in front of people who are going to validate you. They're going to validate your experiences. They're going to understand even some of the mannerisms or behaviors, things that you might say that maybe someone else won't. They're going to get some of what you're feeling and how you're feeling. They're going to understand that disconnect of why you maybe didn't get the history in school and why trying to give it to you now is so important. I consider myself extremely blessed to have gone to Bethune. And I went back as an adult. But when she said enter to learn, when Mary McLeod Bethune said enter to learn, depart to serve, like I really took that serious, that I had an obligation. And most Black graduates recognize when we talk about W.E.B. Du Bois, he had this premise that 10% of the Black population would need to reach a certain level to raise up the other 90%. And so the talented 10th, that has always stayed with me. And so I don't feel like I have the luxury of just living my life without trying to make sure that I am giving those, I don't want to say beneath me, those who are younger than me, the tools that they need to be successful in the same way that it was given to me. And so that is why I take my work with young people extremely serious. I try to be that example. But I have as many of my white students who I think care about me as I do my Black students, because I do try to see the worth and the humanity in all of my children.
You always do. You always have.
So HBCUs are certainly not the only option. It was just the best option.
Yeah, I would say this, and I think that's very much where the Black experience and the trans experience intersect, at least from my perspective. I was very blessed with the people that I fell in with, the sisters that I have around me that taught me that I needed to stand up and not just quietly transition and stay in the background, that I needed to be proud of what I am and who I am and to help others. Because
it's also, I'm sorry to cut you off, it is also the civil rights moment of our time.
Yeah.
Trans rights right now, they're taking away Dempsey's healthcare, your healthcare.
They're taking away Black history. They're taking away trans rights. They're taking away
women's rights to their own body, for the love of God. For some
they're going
reason,
backwards.
The Republican Party feels that a mask is your personal preference, but my body that I was born into is a man's business.
Yep.
Sorry. I don't understand it. I know that
we don't recognize that we are living history right now.
Hard for me to comprehend that stuff.
Yeah, I agree, Jackie. We don't, but my body that was a man's body, I don't even have the right to.
Correct.
So intersectionality, it comes back to that magic word, that the more we start looking at being activists, ally, accomplices for all of these things together, the better off we are.
100%.
That's really the question I wanted to just take a few minutes and ask you is, how do we become better partners in the struggle for positive change with the Black community? Because that's something I would really like to do and something I would really like to understand. And that may be a hard question. I know that's a lot to throw on.
We have to, and I'm going to go back to the word, I probably said it a couple times. We have to get back to respecting each other's humanity. And everyone having the right to live in a way that makes sense to them. We get one life. And I'm telling you, these years are going by really, really fast. And today I thought, I said to my husband, what if I had just made one different decision in my life? How would this have looked? You need to be able, and I'm glad, Vicki, that you are living in your authentic self now. You deserve that. And we need to see that. We need to allow people to live a life that makes sense. It's not for you to understand. It's for you to, you ain't got to embrace it. I do think you need to respect it though. But what happens for Jackie, I don't have the right to tell anybody on this live what you should or should not be doing. Because again, at the end of the day, I don't want that extended to me either. We are, it helped me out here, Jamie, because I talked about it earlier. When Dr. King said we are like inextricably connected, when he was talking about being woven together, like what happens to you happens to me. And when you think about those who are in positions of leadership, like we right now, everybody on this call from all 4 different walks of life, we all are dealing with some of the same issues, the same concerns, the same needs. We are absolutely tied in together. We have a whole lot more in common on this call than those that are sitting in Washington making decisions for us. And so we've got to stop trying to alienate ourselves into these spaces, because what we're doing is exactly what they want and need us to do, so that there is no coming together. And that is what they want. And they pay a whole bunch of money to keep us separated from each other.
Right.
The more they separate us. But things like what Andrea has us going to on March 8th, which is a March for Dreams and Freedom, which is the intersectionality of all
trans women, immigrants, Black women, people of color, Hispanic women, farm workers.
What an amazing way to learn about another person and be able to experience
Find a
different
connection.
culture. And I have to say this because I call myself a recovering Karen for a reason. You know, we talk about privilege so much, and it's so important because in a Karen's mind, when you say privilege, they're thinking that you're trying to take away any struggles that they had in their life and trying to discount that. That is not what anybody is trying to do. I promise you that's not what it is, but there is privilege. I know I have privilege. One of my privileges is being able to sit here right now and be able to talk to people. Not every mom of a trans person has that privilege. And that's why I take this privilege serious. And I'm not going to stop, because not everybody can be this visible.
And circling back also, Jackie, to what you were talking about with Dempsey, and I bring this up a lot. There's one of us for every 33,000 people because of how few real transgender people there are in the world. They know there's not enough of us to get our stories out for people to be exposed to what we are and the fact that we're just trying to live our lives and you know, Jamie. The first time I made Jamie cry was literally talking about how I went from being suicidal and at the end of my life to transitioning and starting my real life, and what gender dysphoria can be and why it's so awful. And I was lucky. I was very, very, very lucky. A lot of us don't make it. But what you saw in Dempsey was what a lot of people who are exposed to us see. Oh,
one trans person.
They're just
it's
people.
really one trans person. But also, I think,
and that's why these stories. That's why the stories that you were telling are so important to us, because it helps us understand. It helps give us perspective. It their lives and where we intersect, just like you said, gives us okay, I can carry that fight forward too. They didn't get an opportunity to live the way we're living even right now. And I definitely am not going to let them take my rights away without a fight. And it may be a pretty brutal one, but I can't go backwards. They couldn't go backwards.
When I gave birth to my 2 children, they both had equal rights and they both had all their rights. Now, 26 years later, neither one of my children have all their rights.
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
Right.
Can we absolutely agree to have Professor Hunter back on again to finish?
She has to. She's probably going to have to come on about 5 more times because apparently we can get through 2 biographies per episode.
First of all, she's a new friend, and I hope she feels the same way about us. We are so glad to have met her, and thank you, Jamie, for
this
bringing
has been
her.
an amazing space. I'm almost like
brilliant.
I need to be in the room with you all. I can feel the love. I need it. Absolutely need it. Thank you so much. And the work that you're doing is so important and necessary. My relationship with Jamie, it wasn't just her helping me to understand, her helping me understand allowed me to help my husband and my children. So it's not, that's how this has to look. That's where it happens. The foundation is the home. It's the family. And so I'm just grateful for the work and the energy and the effort. And most of you are doing this at a huge cost to your own well-being, to your own mental health. You take this home with you. In the same way that I take some of these Black experiences home with me. It's with you all the time. Like, we don't get to leave it at the office. I'm Black all the time. Like, it's with me all the time. But I think these spaces allow us to have those conversations that we can't always have everywhere we are. And so I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you, Jamie, so much for the invitation. Anytime you want me back, I don't have any friends here. Just kids. My husband, he don't want to talk to me.
You're coming back.
So, yes. One of the things that I would love for you to talk about on an upcoming episode is because I do know in the Black and brown communities, LGBTQIA plus issues are Mystique is like
now we have Laura's pussy on
with my show are more complicated. I would love it if you could help give some tips, some understanding, some knowledge, whatever it is. I don't even know what to ask for, but something to allow us to be able to share knowledge and help destigmatize this for some families that might need to hear it. Like, your words might you have such a way of using your words to be able to connect with people. I think maybe you being able to say it in a way that can cross over those boundaries would be amazing.
Yeah, and I'd also like to really get into the reframing of Black history, because that to me is something that's an absolute travesty and a crime against humanity.
In Florida is horrendous.
And it won't stop there, unfortunately.
And unfortunately, I once again, recovering Karen here, I feel like I need to go to an AA meeting. I also want to say, I used to not understand that the reason that we need specific months, such as Black History Month, Pride Month, Spanish Heritage Month, is that these lives and heritages are being erased from the history books.
Because we whitewash history with every book that we write. It's I don't write it, but it's all of our textbooks are whitewashed. Yes. Everything is eliminating essential and valuable
vital
kids
information.
Even in Florida, they don't even get to learn about Ocoee or Rosewood. They don't get to learn any of that. And like, I put it in because, at this point, I'm going to get fired. I don't care. Like, we need to tell these stories.
Yes, stories matter. There's a reason. Stories matter and visibility matters. The only reason, Jamie is the one that taught me basically what they're teaching you in American history is freaking how to go to war and play Battleship, for the love of freaking God. I don't give a shit what the fuck Patton did and why his horse went where it did. This isn't checkers right now. We're chess.
Yeah, manifest destiny. What a bunch of bullshit.
All right, let's sign off and we'll chat after.
Neither do we.
Let's sign off and we'll chat after.
We will. I'm gonna play the bumper. We'll be right back with final goodbyes and final thoughts right after this. Jackie, again, thank you. We definitely consider you friend and part of our family and
the best guest we've ever had.
Yes, our ladies' night out table is really blessed to have you here, and we have so much more to talk about. I fell into activism. I fell into the rainbow community. I fell into a lot of the things that I'm now embracing and fighting for. But I was lucky in that I had Jaime and Laura to help kind of guide me and put me on the path. And now we really have you to help us as well with the intersectionality and bringing more of that together to our fight as well. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming and joining with us tonight.
I miss
Anybody
you.
else?
I miss Jackie so much.
Thank you so much.
You are coming to visit this summer, though, right? You're going to hang because we're together all the time.
Home. I can't do this all year long. I'm coming home. I'll be home this week.
We have
I'm
room.
going to be doing a road trip to get Jackie. If she doesn't come visit me, I'll rent an Airstream if I have to.
Oh, that's pretty fun.
I may stay just so you can pick me up on the Airstream.
So, Jackie, do you know where Long Branch, New Jersey is?
I do not. I'm in South Jersey. Where are you from?
Monmouth
What part
Park,
of Jersey?
Monmouth College.
Yeah.
That part.
That's by
North
Cherry
Jersey.
Hill.
Oh, it's literally it's where it goes in. The armpit.
That's where
the producer of the show goes. We're really gonna have a Jersey.
Oh, no, honey. No, that's Avon Park, honey.
Oh my God.
It's not where the bougie people live. I can promise you that.
Next week, we're going to have another guest. A therapist. My sister-in-law, Amy, is going to be here. If you have any questions you'd like to ask about LGBTQ or transgender, send those in to lolvicky@livingoutloud.com. That's Vicki with an I. Or just join us in the comments and we'll see you there. We will see you all next week. Thank you so much for joining us. Great episode. And thank you for joining us for a Black History Month moment. We'll talk to you next week.
Love you, Jackie.